So hello, my name is Andy Mazzullo. I'm going to be presenting our work on the project Medicamento, which is an app to learn medicine in Spanish medical terms for providers here in America. So we're going to start by meeting the user. So meet Avni. She's 32 years old. She lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is the state capital. She's a physician's associate, which is the same as a physician's assistant. They've changed the name to a physician's associate, so I wanted to use that. In an emergency room, her work schedule changes from week to week. It's never the same. She interacts with Spanish-speaking patients on a daily basis. There's a very large Spanish-speaking population in Raleigh, North Carolina, and in North Carolina in general. She wants to provide patients with the best medical care that she can offer. She cares a lot about her job, and she also just enjoys it. She loves learning about medicine. So that's a little introduction to Avni. Some of the problems that Avni has is that she took Spanish in high school, but forgot most of it, and that Spanish level didn't really go into any medical terms. Some patients that she interacts with can only speak Spanish, making care really difficult. If she does utilize a translator at work, it takes a lot of time, and it takes away from patient care. They have to call the translator up, wait for it to connect, and then the translator needs to hear what the patient's saying, and then they regurgitate it back to the provider. The provider then says something back to the translator, and the translator then says something back to the patient. It can turn a 5-minute conversation into a 35-minute conversation. Her routines, it's difficult to get into routine with Avni because she's constantly working in a regular work schedule. But she knows that if she learns just a few basic medical terms in Spanish, that would make her a lot more capable at work, especially when dealing with those Spanish-speaking patients. Direct quote, learning Spanish medical terms would make me more capable as a physician and improve the patient experience, resulting in less miscommunication and more efficient patient interviews. Now we have a translator where everything must be repeated. We could save a lot of time with a few basic terms. So this idea really guided us with this app, Medicamento. We needed an app that was going to meet all of these needs. So we needed an app that was going to teach her basic Spanish medical terms, that could be used on the fly as a reference during her shifts in the emergency room, which can be very chaotic. An app that saves new Spanish medical terms as she learns from a coworker or a patient. And an app that provides an in-depth, stimulating learning experience. So our hypothesis statement. We believe that by building a vocabulary app that focuses on Spanish medical terms, Avni will be able to practice her terminology and use the app as a reference when dealing with Spanish-speaking patients, thus increasing her patient satisfaction scores, which is a score that is used for providers to determine how well they're providing their patients with the care that they need, making Avni a more well-rounded physician's associate. So where do we start? We start with these basic user flows, one for the sign-up. Where you open the app, you have a splash screen, you get some account information, your name, email, password, what level of Spanish you know, and how you plan using the app. We'll probably use that more down the line to orient the app for its best use. If we're finding that people are using it just to strictly study, we'll gear it more towards that. If people are using it more just as a reference, we can gear it more towards that or satisfy both. And then finally, there's onboarding and you launch to a home screen. The study session, we knew that there's a lot of chaos in the emergency room, and just in general, your schedule's never the same, so building a routine can be difficult. So we made the study sessions very quick. You can choose between 5 to 10 or 15 terms in the study session. And you can pick a couple different just basic categories that we have: basic anatomy, common illnesses, patient history questions. They load flashcards based on choices, display a summary of the study session afterwards, saves the study session, and then asks you if you'd like to study again. So that was the general framework in the very beginning of Medicamento. Then moving on to some low fidelity wireframes. Here we have sign up and onboarding for new users, home screen and admin area, adding vocabulary and social features, and a study session in reference mode. The adding vocabulary, the study session reference mode, and the social features were the big 3 features that we wanted to focus on for Medicamento early on. These met Avni's needs. The study session and just the sort of quick nature of it all helped her. would help her learn basic Spanish medical terms. The reference mode will be used on the fly, used quickly during a shift to look something up before going to talk to a patient or maybe afterwards. And the adding vocabulary saves new Spanish medical terms that she learns from a coworker or a patient. And the social features provide a more in-depth stimulating learning experience. You can access podcasts in Spanish with medical terms. You could also ask a translator, or you can read a Spanish medical journal. Some of the early prototypes with those three-ish features that I described, the study session and reference mode, they're kind of in the same area. The adding the vocabulary feature, where you can add the phrase in English and Spanish along with some other information on it. And then the social feature of asking a translator. You can type a question, you can record a question and send it to a translator, and they'll send it back to you. Then came usability testing. So here's our fine folks we did some usability testing with. We had them sign in as a new user and registered user to the home page. We had them add new vocabulary words to Medicamento. We had them complete a study session, activate reference mode, and submit a question to the Ask a Translator feature. Those are the basic tasks we had them do. We had a couple issues, nothing too serious, but you see there's two that are rated a 3 on Jacob Nielsen's rating scale from 0 to 4. So for tasks 2, 3, and 5, participants requested a search by term and category for vocabulary, podcasts, and journals. And then the other issue that we found is that if users made a mistake inputting their profile information, they had to retrace their steps in the very beginning of the sign-up process through every screen in order to correct a mistake. So we'll detail how we dealt with those two in a second. But also reference mode was a little bit unclear in the onboarding process, so we simply renamed it. Instead of just saying reference, we actually explicitly said reference mode on the onboarding and study session. Some users wanted a timestamp on newly added terms to be able to search by date inputted. So we added a timestamp whenever you add a new term, vocabulary, and also a user's also search for section when searching for terms in reference mode. And also, users would prefer answers from translators to be received in the app rather than sent to a personal email, just taking away that extra layer of tasks in order to get the answer that you need from the translator. So we just have those answers from the translators sent directly to the app. And there's also options for audio or video responses from the translator to make the answers even more clear. But those first two issues that we had, we simply added a search function for vocabulary and podcasts and journals, so right there at the bottom on those two wireframes. And also we channeled users directly back to the review screen after they made an edit on their profile in the sign-up portion. So say someone went to review their account information, they found they put the wrong email, they put their work email instead of their personal email. When they edit the email, they'll go back to the email screen, and after that correction, they'll be sent right back to the review information, account information page. This subverts going through changing your password and editing your current level Spanish and how you're going to use the app if you just wanted to go back and change your email. Or maybe even thinking in the future of adding it so that if you change something on the review account information screen, you'll edit it right there rather than having to go back to the previous screen. The next steps for Medicamento is more usability testing with nurses, physicians associates, doctors, hospital administrators, and medical technicians, trying to get the whole gambit of everybody who works in a hospital to get their input on how Medicamento can best suit their needs. Also considering what terms would come preloaded into Medicamento based on medical specialization. So for example, someone working in the emergency room or someone who's working as a hospitalist, yes, they're both working in medicine, but it's two different styles of medicine there. And so figuring out what terms will go into which discipline. And also editing those preloaded terms to accommodate to a beginner in Spanish as well as a advanced person who can speak Spanish. The next is a heavy focus on UI development, pulling influences from the Spanish medicine scene. I don't really know much about the Spanish medicine scene, but I think it would be a good place to pull artistic influence from, given that this is Medicamento, medicine in Spanish. And then finally, gamifying the study session feature and hashing out the logistics of an Ask a Translator feature. So gamifying the study session, just making it more interesting. It's going to be quick, we know that, but we want it to be interesting and fun as well to learn. And then finally, the sort of the Ask a Translator feature is going to have a lot of things going with it. Do we have people who are standby, ready to call in if someone needs a question answered quickly, or do we just have people on standby that can answer questions at leisure and send them back to the users of Medicamento? Learning from this whole process, certainly getting the most out of usability testing without guiding the users to a certain outcome. It's like the burden of knowledge. I knew where I wanted them to go and what I wanted them to do, but it was just about just giving them as little information as possible and seeing if they can do it without that prior knowledge that I had of just sort of building this thing, seeing it go from nothing to something. The information that I pulled from user interviews were extremely valuable. That really guided where we wanted to go with this app, and it really gave it its flavor, its unique flavor for what we wanted to do with the app. So those user interviews are incredibly important, and they can really set the stage for what comes later. And it was essential to keep the user in mind at all times, thinking about what it would be like to be in an emergency room or be by the hospital bed, trying to interact with a patient that speaks a different language, and getting the app as the middle ground so that way you can make that conversation more efficient and get people the care that they need. So just trying to keep that user in mind. Also, wireframing, while fun, can be a lot of work. I understand now why they have the time limits that they set for wireframing. You can really get in the weeds with it. I found myself trying to think about every possible outcome, and that was a lot of work up front, but it did actually pay off in the prototyping process. It was relatively easy. We didn't have a lot of big issues that happened. But of course, those errors or mistakes in prototypes or wireframes were a great opportunity to learn, like, oh yeah, I gotta include back buttons on everything. Or yeah, it would be nice to have, simply just have a button to confirm what you've inputted. You forget to do simple things like that that are so intuitive. And that's it. That's it for presenting my work for Medicamento, medicine in Spanish. So thank you all for listening. Hope you got a lot out of that.